Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Please reach out to me directly. Email tmosso@thewatchbox.com for pricing. Today, we're discussing a model launched in 2014 that's had real staying power in the Bethune catalog. This is the Bethune DB28 Digitale, a jump hour with a moon phase. It incorporates everything that makes the brand special, from innovation to in-house fabrication and engineering to scarcity. So the example you see here is fitted with a new strap for a new look, and while I've checked this watch on the channel before, we're revisiting it because new strap, new watch, new ambiance. That said, the dimensions have not changed. Still 45 millimeters in diameter in grade 5 titanium. It's 13.3 millimeters thick, which is probably thinner than you thought. And it has a variable geometry floating lug system. These are the broad lugs. Historically, there's been 3 different sizes. This is the largest, so when at full extension, these are 57.8 millimeters across the wrist, maximally compressed. Now the distance across the wrist is 53.1. There's a 26 millimeter spacing between the lugs, and grade 5 titanium's nice because, like all titanium, it's hypoallergenic. Unlike all titanium, it's both lighter than steel and more scratch-resistant than standard 904L and 316 steels. On my 16-centimeter circumference wrist, the watch fits, though if I were to buy this for myself, I'd probably ask Bethune to fit the smaller lugs. But it does fit, it does sit comfortably. You can see it is right out to the edge, but because the lugs can move, that's less of a factor. You can also see it's probably thinner than you thought. Well, it has a cylindrical profile. It's actually pretty low on the wrist, being only about a millimeter thicker than a Daytona. We'll do a down the barrel shot where you can see that the case itself isn't terribly broad across the wrist. All of that span is in those spring-loaded lugs. Taking a quick look at the strap, a very different and very cool look on a handmade Jean Rousseau strap. Jean Rousseau is the Parisian OEM supplier to a lot of high-end brands like, for example, FP Journe, and Bethune is a perfect application for that kind of customization. Miami blue, large rectangular scale alligator leather. We have a sheer cut side, a monotone stitch. It's calfskin on the bottom, no crimping, no gouging. This is a brand new strap. We have a Bethune factory buckle in matching grade 5 titanium, and Bethune buckles are always model line specific, which is why the buckle here is evacuated, open, and airy and really resembles the lug profile of the watch. These little torpedo tips on the ends of the lugs, that's the last vestige of the design of the original 2002 DB1 chronograph, the first Bethune models, sometimes called the ogival lugs. You can see there's just a hint of them here. And we have the floating lugs, first introduced on the DB26 perpetual calendar back in 2008. And when the DB28 first came out in 2010, it was a revelation. It incorporated extended power reserve, titanium construction, floating lugs, and a moon phase. Well, this watch adds a jump hour display, and it should be noted that that original DB28 won the GPHG Aigle d'Or in 2011. That is effectively the Best Picture award at the Oscars of watchmaking. So this comes from a lauded lineage. Now, what makes this one different is that unlike most DB28s, it does have a solid dial with an unconventional display. So you don't see the balancer, the escapement, or the barrel bridge on the dial side here. Bethune makes its own cases, it makes its own dials, it makes its own movements. So everything from the outside in has been fabricated in-house. We have a lovely Grand Orge or barleycorn pattern, and that's real reductive guillotine on the dial. They cut this, it isn't stamped. Then at center, and actually across the vaulted top of the dial, we have this wonderful black polished and fire blued grade 5 titanium. So this process for bluing titanium is proprietary at Bethune. It's an oxide layer, about half the wavelength of yellow light, so you see blue instead. That's how that works. The little celestial bodies in this sort of sky-like portrayal, those are actually rods of white gold that are inserted into small drillings in the dial. And you can see that the moon phase display here is actually spherical. It has volume. It has the volume of a sphere, and it's made of 2 hemispheres, one of which is white palladium and one of which is blued steel. Now the watch is a jump hour, and you could see that it is a scrolling minute jumping hour display. There's also a quick set for the moon phase, and the moon phase only needs to be corrected once every 122 years. Now you have a screw down crown up at the top. This is a bullhead winder, and so the screw down is primarily there, not so much to make it highly water resistant, but to secure it against impact with the mobile lug. So that's why we have this bullhead design with a screw down factor. It's a particularly strong 30 meters of water resistance, but I still don't recommend swimming with it. So you have the jumping hour, you have the scrolling minute, and then on the reverse side we have the movement that makes it all possible. Now, there have been a couple of different generations of balance wheel at Bethune. The company has at least 10 distinct balance designs. This was the 2010 patent, which is a solid disc of silicon with as much of the mass as possible in the white gold rim. It has a smooth rim of white gold to reduce the effect of aerodynamics. The silicon wheel helps to prevent the balance from being susceptible to great swings in temperature, either very cold or very hot. And so by maximizing the mass in the rim, reducing the effect of aerodynamic drag, and then also reducing the impact of heat fluctuations, Denis Flageolet, who is the lead watchmaker and co-founder of the company, has created a very reliable and consistent timekeeper in this balance. Now you can also see that there's a flat hairspring, but it's not like a conventional flat hairspring. If you look carefully, you can actually see that it's two springs clamped together, and there is the clamp. The clamp binds these two hand-formed curves, and while Bethune does not make its own hairspring material, this particular combination of two curves is a patented design, and all of the shaping of the inner and outer curves is done by hand. The idea is to create the concentric breathing properties of an overcoil, but with the thin profile and superior shock resistance of a flat hairspring. It beats away at 4 hertz or 8 beats per second. I don't know how well you can see it, but there's also a low friction silicon escape wheel in there. We have 2 mainspring barrels, self-adjusting. That's a patented system. 5 days of manual wind power reserve, and you cannot accidentally overwind it. Actually, 3 different shock protection springs for the balance. You can see one at the flank, there's another one on the opposite side, and then Inca block on the center. And this is not just here to make the watch more resistant to shock, it's also here to more rapidly recenter the balance staff in its pivot jewel, so after a shock, it can settle and resume accurate timekeeping. And then all of this is hand-finished to exacting standards. While the look is avant-garde, you have to remember that the finish is very traditional. If you look on the edge of the bridges, we have broad mirrored anglage on both the barrel bridge and the barrel bridge cap atop that. You could see that the mounting point for the springs, this is all black polished and fire blued. The springs themselves have been mirror beveled, and then we have this continuously rounded fired blue and black polished balance bridge. We have Côte de Bethune across the cap of the barrel bridge and the cap of the base plate with solarization on the barrels and the ratchet wheels. Screw heads are black polished with chamfered slots in circumference, and the base plate has been media blasted. Even the jewel sinks have been internally beveled for what's called a partridge eye effect. And if you look at these stripes, these Côte de Bethune, you can see that the wheel that lays down the stripes has been reversed. So you can see on either side, the darker facet of the stripe faces inward, and that's on either side. So it's not consistent all the way. Each side is a mirror of the other rather than just being striped across in one action. And again, 30 meters water resistant. You probably don't want to test that theory. Beautifully finished, technically audacious, and distinctively styled. This is one of the most exciting watches from one of the most exciting independent brands in the business. Bethune has only just passed 3,000 watches made since its founding in 2002. They're only making about 250 to 300 watches a year right now, and compare that to about 900 a year for FP Journe, and you get a real sense of just how scarce and special these watches are. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details. One more quick note. I thought you might appreciate actually seeing the quick set for the moon phase in action. You can see how one half is actually fire blued steel and the other half is white palladium. They're joined together and then fired over a traditional oil lamp on a bed of metal shavings. The palladium stays white and the steel turns blue, and that's how that moon phase works.